Now we'll safety stitch the pocket in place at the side seam and the waist. Secure the pocket bag to the side seam and the waistband. This will hold it in place when you are attaching the side back and the waistband. Be mindful not to over tighten the pocket mouth. We need that gap so you can get your hand inside. Take care not to stitch the guard in place when attaching the waist. Here we are securing the pocket bag to the waist. Match the notches, keep everything smooth and stitch inside the seam allowance. The front of the trouser is now completed. The next stage would be to complete the back of the trouser and attach to the side seams and inside leg. We are now ready to apply the waistband. First, interline the waistband. Then fold in half along the top of the waistband and press in place. Then fold up the seam allowances. This is the side that will be attached to the right side of the garment. Refold to the center line and fold the remaining seam allowances over the previously pressed seam. As we fold the seam allowance over the already previously folded edge, we will have a shorter seam allowance. This is the side that will be attached to the inside of the waist. Only tailored waistbands will be made in two halves. For jeans and skirts, this will be in one piece from the center front around the back to the other side of the center front. Now we'll apply the waistband. Note the seam allowances overhang the guard. Align the edges of the seam allowances of the waistband and the trouser. Right sides are together. Stitch to the right of the ditch that you have pressed into the waistband. This will allow the waistband to roll over nicely. Align the edges of the waistband on the trouser at all times. Now we're going to fold the waistband at the center, right sides together. The pressing line marks the center. The shorter seam allowance is now exposed. You can now see the extension on the inside of the waistband. Stitch the end of the seam allowance from the fold of the waistband backstitch to secure, cut away excess fabric in the seam allowance to reduce the bulking. Now, using your finger and thumb, open the seam allowance to miter the corner and push through to the right side. Push quite firmly. You may use the point of a scissor or a screwdriver to make this corner quite crisp. However, take care not to go through the material. Eventually, you will press this nice and flat. Tuck in the corner of the seam allowance at the edge and make neat. Note that this particular seam is rolling towards the inside of the trouser. Fold the seam allowances in and pin from the right side if necessary. In real terms, the waistband would run from the left side, around the back, finishing at the right front. Note that The seam allowance overhangs on the front edge. Note that stitching is to the right of the ditch that you have pressed in. Backstitch at the end to secure. Repeat as for the left front by folding the waistband over so that right sides are together. From the back of the garment, sew only the seam allowances. Once again, clip excess fabric to reduce bulking and turn through. It is advisable at this stage to check the alignment of the front, both the right and the left side, to see that they're running true to the top of the waistband. Here you can see the extension of the back of the waistband. We will begin sewing from the right front, leading around to the left front. While stitching, pull the waist seam apart. Try to stitch exactly into the fold. When you release the two pieces of material, the waistband will roll over the line that you are now sinking in place. Backstitch at the end to secure. Here you can see how the front of the waistband is rolling over to cover the stitch line. This will eventually be pressed in place. Here you can see a neat seam allowance. Here we have a second demonstration showing the sling stitching. You can see how important it is to pull the two pieces of fabric apart and stitch in the ditch. If you find it easier, you may use a zipper foot. Note the neat line on the back of the waistband. The seam allowance is also layered, therefore it will prevent bulking. So here we have a fly front, attaching a waistband and an integral pocket demonstration completed.